Raise some
Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, the time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.
Welcome to the Raising Cain Show, where we confront the pressing issues of our time and explore real solutions to preserve our republic. I'm your host, Nate Cain, and I'm thrilled about today's show. We have a special guest with us, Josh Bernstein, a nationally recognized political analyst, commentator, and the author of Preserving Liberty, Bold and Brave Solutions to Save America and Create Permanent Freedom. Josh is known for his ability to cut through the noise with well-sourced commentary and provide practical solutions to the complex problems we face in America today. In his book, Preserving Liberty, Josh tackles some of the biggest threats to our freedom with a fresh perspective, from voter integrity to immigration reform to limiting government overreach. He doesn't just point out the problems. He offers real actionable solutions to help restore our nation and secure liberty for future generations. Josh, it's an honor to have you on the show today. Thank you for being here.
Great to be on the program with you, Nate.
So let's dive in, Josh. What inspired you to write Preserving Liberty at this critical moment in America's history?
Well, I actually wrote something that I called The Great Squanderer. And believe it or not, it was back in 2014. It was about Barack Obama and how he squandered his presidency, with race relations and, all the different crazy things that he did. And the funny thing is I was at Turning Point and at one of the events, and I was walking around and I saw an area in which they had these books on display. And so I went over there and I was talking to the gal there and I said, oh, I know that person. That person's been on my show. Dr. Ben Carson's been on my show. This one, Dr. Robert Malone. And so the lady says, well, who are you? And so I told her who I was. And she's like, oh, have you ever written a book? And I said, no, actually I haven't, but I've written something about 10 years ago. And I always say to myself, I'm going to write that book, right? I'm going to get to it. And I never did it. I just concentrated on building my name, recognition, and fighting and exposés and investigations and doing all that stuff. And so she said, oh, you should definitely submit something. And I said, well, you know what? I tell you what, I'll brush it off and I'll update it to 2024. Obviously, it wasn't about Obama now, right? And well, some of it is, but and so I did that. And then the funny thing is that I noticed that AJ had Tony on as a guest, Tony Lyons. And I said, wait a minute, wasn't that the person and wasn't that the publishing company? And I said to AJ, hey, do me a favor, see if you can get me on as a guest with Tony on my show. And so my goal was to talk to Tony, great guy, great patriot. And I did talk to him. And the funny thing is that after that interview, he actually said that he was wondering if I would be interested in interviewing the guests that he has, meaning the authors that write books for his publishing company. And I said, of course, I'd be honored to do that. And so from that relationship, I was able to then submit a manuscript, an outline, if you will. And thankfully, on the first try, I got published. So it's been a whirlwind of emotions. It's been an incredible experience and journey. You learn a lot about yourself when you write a book, even if the book's not really truly about you. And man, it was like once I got the okay and the green light, it was like, okay, I got to go write a book now. And so I did. And, a lot of it came from, I've done this for over 12 plus years. I've done so many investigative reports and everything else. So I kind of went through some of my old videos and I said, all right, I want to keep it not on the social stuff. I want to keep it on preserving liberty. Let's keep it focused on just that and just that alone for the first book. And so that's what I did. And so I talked about dismantling Washington. I talked about balancing the electorate. I talked about an armed society is a polite society. I talked about Houston, we have a spending problem. I talked about Fauci. And so all these different things. And I put it all together, and it's about 150 pages. It's a pretty easy read, to be quite honest. This is the book here, Preserving Liberty, Bold and Brave Solutions to Save America and Create Permanent Freedom. The foreword was written by the great Congressman Paul Gosar, a good buddy of mine. It's been endorsed by 2 New York Times bestsellers, and folks can go to Amazon and put in Preserving Liberty book, and you can order a copy of it anytime you want.
That's great. And congratulations on your book. One of the things that I'm very interested in your book about is, for me, I would say, there's all kinds of different issues that are going on, but this issue of liberty is one of the most important issues of our generation as Americans. I don't think any other time in history have our rights been trampled, like they have now, not since, really the American Revolution. And when I look at things like the massive surveillance state that we're living under right now, when I look at the massive, censorship industrial complex, our government being in bed with big tech and big pharma. I mean, it's just unbelievable what we've seen just in the last decade. And so I'm glad that you're writing a book on that specific issue. I think we need more books on that issue. We need more discussion, more debate, more dialogue about it, because I think there's a lot of people, a lot of Americans that are asleep at the wheel and that are not paying attention to what's going on, that they don't realize the rug's being pulled out from underneath them, like, right there while they're standing on it. You present some bold solutions in your book to secure freedom permanently. Can you share some of these key strategies? I've had a just a little taste of it. I haven't had a chance to read your book, obviously. But I've seen some of your highlights, and so can you share some of these key strategies and what you believe are crucial to restoring liberty?
Well, first thing, and again, you would know this because your cybersecurity background, the FISA Court. People don't really concentrate too much on the FISA Court. We hear about it. It's this little boogeyman, right? The FISA Court warrants with President Trump in 2016, but we don't really know what it's all about. The FISA Court has been around since the 1970s, okay? They have issued like over 44,000 warrants. They have a 99.9% acceptance rate on issuing warrants, okay? This is a court that works in concert, operates in secrecy, and is almost as powerful and influential as the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, who is the person that appoints every single justice onto this court? One person, and they answer to no one. Chief Justice John G. Roberts Jr. is the one that appoints all 11 justices on the FISA Court. They don't answer to anyone because they don't have to. Why? Well, because they don't have to go through the advise and consent of a Senate confirmation process. So one of the things that I talk about in the book is that a very minimum, let's at least have them go through a Senate confirmation process.
Yeah, I know a lot about FISA. I did not know that. And I'm thank you for bringing that up, because that is a very important point, extremely important, because essentially you have a bunch of unelected, bureaucrats or judges that are basically making these decisions to violate people's constitutional rights without any oversight whatsoever.
Right. And so that's why I say, at the very minimum, let's at least force them to go through an advise and consent of the Senate confirmation process. So at least there's some oversight, and at least the Senate can say, hey, yay or nay on some of these judges. It shouldn't be that one man appoints all of these judges I mean, that's just incredible. So that's one of the things that I talk about. As far as election integrity, we've got to be able to balance the electorate. And what does that mean exactly? Well, there's 3,142 counties or county equivalents in the United States of America. However, 50% of the entire population lives in only 144 of those counties. That means that if you live in one of those 2,998 other counties, you literally have zero say in who your representatives are in Congress, federal level, state level, or the presidential level. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to change that. And we can't sit here with a straight face and say that we are a representative government of, for, and by the people when only 5% of the people are making the decisions while the other 95% don't have any decision-making ability at all. Yeah. And so I want to create 50 Nebraskas. Now, the left, they want to get rid of the Electoral College. Why? Well, it's pretty easy. So they can run up the coast, right? New York, LA, all the population. The next thing you know, you don't have any more Republicans. What I want is 50.
America would be left out of that.
Correct. And I want 50 Nebraskas. And what do I mean by that? Well, they do things a little bit different. They don't do a winner-take-all type of program when it comes to administering the electoral votes in their respective states. Instead, they proportion it based on some counties. So why not have all 50 states do the same thing? The way that it would break down would be metropolitan counties would get the most amount of the electoral votes. That's got to be fair, right? And so that would be 50,000 people or more. However, micropolitans and sparsely populated would also get electoral votes. So a micropolitan is 10,000 to 49,999, and sparsely populated would be from 1 person to 9,999. So what I want to do is I want to take the power structure and remove it from the big blue cities and the dominant areas of the urban epicenters and give it back to its rightful owners, we the people. And so that's one of the suggestions. I don't want to get too much into the weeds on that, but if that was ever implemented, and again, that's why I have a congressman doing the forward, because the congressman could then take these ideas and introduce them as legislation.
Well, you know, on that note of the electorate, one of the things that really concerns me, obviously, illegal immigration. And even if not a single one of these illegal aliens voted in our elections, which we know they are, but even if, let's just say for the sake of argument, not one of them, you know, goes out there and votes, we still have a major problem because you got places like California, where I think in the last election, there was a research paper done that showed that California would lose 7 seats if illegal aliens were not counted in our censuses, because that's where they draw the, you know, the number of electors and all of that. So I think we've got a real problem, and because I think there's already a disproportionate amount of power being given to many of these, you know, these states and counties and cities that are, you know, welcoming illegal aliens into their city and or into their states. And I think that waters down, you know, everybody else's power. And these are people who are not within the jurisdiction of America. They are not here legally, and so they should not be counted, in my opinion. That's
Absolutely.
One of the things that I would like to see happen is see, you know, our census make sure, you know, to identify U.S. citizens versus non-U.S. They don't need to say they're illegal or not, but if they're non-U.S. citizens, it should be clear in our census.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And as a matter of fact, you may remember President Trump at one point wanted to not count illegals because he knew exactly about the gerrymandering and the redistricting that you are actually, you know, right on the money talking about here. And so you're correct. We need to get rid of these illegal aliens out of this country. We need a mass deportation. You know, that's not being cruel. That's being humane, because it's being humane to the people that are legally here as citizens. we've got to get rid of chain migration. We've got to stop the carrots, right? We've got to get rid of wet foot, dry foot. Just because you have a baby here doesn't mean you should automatically be a citizen. And so I want to get rid of a lot of that stuff. Of course, we want to build the rest of the border wall. And people say, oh, that's so racist, so racist. No, actually, it's not. I think what is racist is the fact that you have these people in your country. They are murdering people. They are raping people. They are taking over apartment buildings. And yes, I will say they are indeed eating animals in Springfield, Ohio. It is a 100% fact. Okay, I can give you a million videos. I can show what they're doing. It's gruesome, gruesome stuff. So they can lie all they want, the Democrat mayor, but it's happening.
The problem is that, even when people are coming here on asylum, a lot of people don't know this, but when people come here and they get asylum, that asylum is supposed to be temporary. They're supposed to go back to their country after, whatever the war is or whatever that's going on, ends. It's not meant for people to come here, claim asylum, and then stay. That is not what asylum was supposed to ever be about. For people to come here and illegally and use that claim of asylum in order to be able to stay, it's being abused, obviously, and that's not what it was intended for. And the other thing too, I think that is a real problem with our immigration, is that while maybe in the past, when you had people coming from Mexico, which was right next door to us, a lot of people who came from Mexico, they adopted American culture. They ended up, assimilating into American culture. And within a generation or two, you could not tell the difference between, a child of an immigrant and an American. Nowadays, these people that are coming from all over the world, many countries that don't share anything in common with us, that don't share any kind of religious, commonality with most of America's Judeo-Christian ethic. You have people that are coming here who have only ever experienced, living in a socialist country, and they come here and bring their socialist ideals with them. And there are real problems, it's no longer a melting pot at that point.
Exactly. And,
hostile takeover.
Springfield, Ohio is a perfect example. Look, I say this all the time. Immigration without assimilation is an invasion, no matter how you look at it. If you're bringing people into the country and they will not assimilate to your customs, your morals, your value system, then it is an invasion. They will then take what they have grown up with and learned through the years of being in a third world country, and they will adopt that in your country. It's happening all over Europe. It's happening even in the United States. I mean, look at St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota. I mean, it's called Little Mogadishu. It's the largest Somali population in the entire world outside of the country of Somalia. And that's just one example. I mean, we can see it happening in so many other areas and so many other states. Look, we either have a country with borders or we don't have a country at all with open borders. And we can't have that. And so hopefully there's going to be enough Americans that are sick and tired and fed up that are going to go out there and vote for President Trump, who obviously wants to close the borders. Yeah.
Well, you got definitely places that are becoming no-go zones, here, like what's happened in Sweden. And I think it's a real problem. So I'm glad that you're addressing that in the book. There's another issue too that I'm curious if you talk about in the book or not. But there are so many foreigners buying American farmland. You see China buying American farmland, and of course they're buying farmland and then not, growing anything on it. You see them buying land next to military bases and things like that. And I've got major concerns. Number one, I've lived in other countries, and I served in the military, and I was in Japan for 3 years. I was in Korea for a year. You can't just go to another country and buy land as an American. In fact, if I wanted to buy land in Mexico, I would have to have a business partner who owned more than 50% of the basically of the land grant, and he would have to be able to, he would have to have Mexican citizenship, because there's no way they will allow an American to own land in Mexico. I know this because I have an uncle that has a business down there, and he had to go through this process of finding a business partner to basically, give up 50% of his company so that he could, operate down there. So why do you think we allow that here?
I don't know. And honestly, we should not. I think that if you're not a legal citizen, I don't believe you should be able to be a property owner. I'll say that publicly. I've got no problem with it. Chapter 7 is exclusively all on China, the entire chapter. We go through everything from, not just the spy balloons and TikTok and Temu and the Belt and Road Initiative. There's so much information in this book that we cover. I'll give you an example of one. Temu. Okay, Temu is the parent company of Temu is known as Pinduoduo. Pinduoduo is known in America as PDD Holdings. PDD Holdings has been charged by our federal government numerous times for selling fake items, including surgical masks and medical supplies. We're talking to the millions of dollars. So they disbanded, and they then decided, why don't we back something else? And then they got to this Temu thing, and now you have Temu taking over 17% of the U.S. market share. So folks, understand this. The reason the dollar store went out, or 99 cent is going to on its way out, is because of Temu. Why? Because you can buy something on Temu that is 75 to 80% less money. And so people go, oh, wow, that's great. That's a good bargain. But you know why you can do that? Because they're not paying any payroll at all. This is 100% slave labor from the Uyghur Muslims in the Xinjiang province of Northwest China. So anyone that shops on Temu, you are automatically supporting slave labor. That's something that I talk about in the book. Another thing is made in China. Well, okay, they're starting to realize, because of people like me, that we're pointing out that we don't want people buying things made in China. So what did they do? They switched it to made in the PRC. Well, guess what, folks? The PRC means the People's Republic of China. We need to basically rein in people from buying Chinese goods. And if we have to, we will then put tariffs on American companies that decide to import Chinese-made products. So yeah, you can sell them, but they're going to be a hell of a lot more money.
Yeah, definitely. Back to the issue of liberty. Many people today believe that liberty in America is under threat, and it is. There's no doubt about it. From your perspective, what are the most pressing issues threatening our freedoms right now?
100% election integrity. 100%. There's literally nothing else more important than that. If you can't have free and fair elections, you can't have a country. It's as simple as that, because you can never then get the people in the right positions to then be able to fix the problems. Okay. And so that number one above all else, and I go through a lot of all of that. Remember this, folks, you do not have a right to vote in this country. And it doesn't say you have a right to vote in the Constitution by mail. Okay. That is something that's been created in the last, 40, 50, whatever years. And because of it, it has bastardized the rights to many people being able to vote in free and fair elections. We've got these mail-in ballots. We've got these drop boxes. We've got all these horrific things that we never had before. And worst of all, there's no more election day. Now it's election month, election 6 weeks, election 2 months.
That's got to change. I agree with you. And you've got all these states that all are having their elections on different days. I think that's a problem too in federal elections, because it basically makes places that don't move up their elections, it makes their vote less important. And so what ends up happening is you end up with a general malaise. You end up with people who just don't care. And you also end up with plenty of time for people to rig elections. Exactly. That's another thing I don't like about having early voting and all this nonsense. The
longer you have to vote, the more likely your vote will not count. Look, I say this in the book, in Preserving Liberty. I say this: tyranny is sold as convenience. Oh, don't worry. Just click that button on that voting machine and you'll be fine. Your vote will count. No problem. We've got to get rid of these voting machines. We've got to get rid of these mail-in ballots, maybe for the elderly, infirm, and for people, outside the country. And we've got to get rid of early voting. We've got to get rid of these drop boxes. And another thing we've got to do is we've got to get rid of sandbagging. Okay. Everyone needs to report at the same time, not a few counties first here and then a few counties after that, because exactly what happened in the runoff with Warnock and Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker was crushing him 10, 11, 12, 14 points all night long. I called my buddy Garland Favorito from Voter GA. I said, Garland, what do you think's going to happen here? He goes, well, Fulton County's not reporting and all the red counties reported. And he goes, they're probably going to steal it. And that's exactly what they did. I'll say that publicly. There is no way Herschel Walker did not win that Georgia runoff. What they did is they waited for all the red counties to report first. And then once they did, they figured out how many votes they needed to say, it was a real nail biter. It was just a close one, but Warnock just inched it out. No, that was not the case here at all. And that's really the number one issue is voter integrity.
That's a very good point. That has what essentially is going on there is ballot stuffing.
Yes.
And that has been the primary way elections have been stolen since time immemorial, because, all they got to do is just add more votes. And that's why you end up with many of these, precincts that had more votes than people were registered to vote. It has been going on for a long time. And unfortunately, the mail-in ballots that were allowed and the drop boxes that were allowed due to, COVID, only, basically it put that scenario out there on steroids. I mean, it was basically just uncontrolled. But the reason why the sandbagging part of it is so important is the same reason why they had to shut down the counting, of the 2020 election, so that they could basically figure out how many fraudulent votes they were going to have to add to the mix. Exactly. And I was actually involved in a investigation that went on up in Bethpage, New York. And this was Jesse, the truck driver, that had the 100,000 ballots in the back of his truck that came from Bethpage, New York into Pennsylvania and then disappeared from there. And what's crazy about it is I was on the call, a conference call that Bill Barr was on. You had John Durham Jr., John Durham's son, who was he was the U.S. attorney, I think, for the Eastern District of New York. You also had the Postmaster General and his investigative team and the FBI. And they were putting together a task force because they saw something very serious here. And yet, all of a sudden, Bill Barr shuts it all down, then goes before Congress and says, I've not seen any evidence of widespread voter fraud. Completely lying to Congress and to the American people.
Yep, exactly.
What do you think's going on with these guys?
Well, I think it's clear. They understand the threat that President Trump faces from the standpoint of limiting government, of getting back the control of the government and limiting it so that we, the people, have more freedom. And President Trump wants to do that. These people, the deep state, the administrative state, or as I call them, useful workers in the book, these people need to be eliminated. And I say it in the book, 100%. We need to eliminate and rein in the administrative state. One of the things that I talk about in the book, again, Preserving Liberty, you can go to Amazon, Bold and Brave Solutions to Save America. This is what the book looks like. You'll see my ugly mug staring at you. Okay. So please, folks, you can get the book and order it. But one of the things that I talk about in particular is the SES, is getting rid of the administrative state. Now, President Trump tried to do that with a Schedule F, but of course, through an executive order, that was immediately reversed with Biden. But remember, it can be reversed again and put back on. But I'd like to see it obviously as legislation so that it can't happen anymore. And so we've got to rein these people in. Part of Project 2025, I love Project 2025. I'll say it, no problem, because it's so limiting of government. It gives the people so much freedom. Are there a couple of kooky, crazy things in it? Yeah, so what? But my book is like basically Project 2025 if it was an 8-foot tall Bigfoot. I mean, I talk about limiting government like you cannot believe. You better hope President Trump wins, or I'm going to be a marked man from the administrative state. But that's what has to happen. We've got to eliminate their jobs. And if we eliminate their jobs, the American people will have more freedom. One of the things that I talk about in the book is a suggestion that any president, incoming president, doesn't matter what party, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. Why should you be subjected to working with the former administration so that they can, do everything to drop things to the media and spy on you and leak this and leak that? You shouldn't be subjected to that. So my thought was, okay, whoever the new president-elect is, whoever worked in that administration previously, you are on a 30-day notice. You now have to reapply for your job. And the transition team will then have an opportunity to say yay or nay. I can't understand.
Idea. Automatic firing after 30 days.
Yeah, or rehiring.
Or rehire based on a reevaluation of that person. Yeah,
that is correct.
That's great. Folks, we got to cut to a commercial break to give a word to our sponsors, but stick with us. We're going to get into some even deeper mysteries and specifically getting into talking more about this administrative state and the deep state when we come back from the break. So stick around, folks.
Born in the coastal plains of South Texas, Smoking Gun Coffee is founded by combat veterans that know exactly what a cup of coffee needs to taste like. Run by father and son, each coffee bean is perfected, roasted at 500 degrees, and cooled with a Gulf Coast breeze. Smoking Gun Coffee hand makes and bags each ounce of coffee for maximum customer satisfaction. With every purchase, 10% goes back to organizations that help veterans and local communities. That's Texas made, one bag at a time. To find out more, go to www.smokingguncoffee.com.
Welcome back to the Raising Cain Show. Before we continue, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Smoking Gun Coffee. If you're looking for a bold brew that packs a punch, Smoking Gun Coffee is where it's at. Head over to smokingguncoffee.com and use the coupon code CAIN at the checkout for a special discount. That's CAIN, C-A-I-N. Don't miss out. So we've been having an insightful conversation with Josh Bernstein, the author of Preserving Liberty. And before we went to the break, I was mentioning that I wanted to get into talking about the deep state a little bit more. And, this is call it the deep state, call it the administrative state, whatever you want to call it. The fact is that this bureaucracy of unelected, SESs, it does exist. It is real. And these are the guys who survive administrations and continue to control policy. Now, there was, during the Hillary Clinton email server scandal, the FBI was, interviewing people and all of that. And I can't remember who it was, but one of the interviews that they had, there was a 302 interview sheet, where they took down the notes, and the person in there referred to the shadow government. This is an official document. You can go and you can look it up in the FBI's vault. But they actually even named some names. And I really do think that shadow government, I think, is really a good term for it, because, what is it that they're doing? It's really they're governing even though they were not elected. They are making decisions. They are controlling and they're in power, even though these people do not represent us. And that is, I think, really at the crux of what the problem is with the deep state or shadow government or whatever you want to call it.
You're absolutely correct. And look, I think it's happening right now. I mean, if anyone really thinks that Joe Biden is the president, then they're not paying attention.
Where is he?
And if you think,
I haven't even seen him since he dropped out of the race.
And if you think Kamala, or I call her on my show, Heels Up Headboard Harris, but if you think that she's in control, then you're not paying attention either. Right now, America is being run by what I would consider to be an oligarch. Okay, yes. A bunch of administrative state officials that have been entrenched in Washington for 20, 30, 40, who knows, maybe 50 years. They've seen so many different presidents come and go, and they are entrenched. Those are the people that we need to get rid of. Those are the people we need to fire. Those are the people that need to have to either reapply for their jobs or, go become a Walmart greeter or whatever. Okay. Because if we can eliminate those folks, we, the people, will have so much more freedom. We won't have to worry about leaks. We won't have to worry about spying. I mean, now we have, the Kamala's campaign spying on President Trump's campaign. I mean, all these crazy things that are happening. That is a big, big part of it. So yes, the swamp is deep. We don't want to drain that swamp. We want to fill it in with concrete.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, speaking of Kamala and, whoever controls her, if we want to know that, we need to get a hold of those earrings that she had that were basically, did you see the video of that?
I did. Yeah, I did see
immediately
that.
after it showed that those pearl earrings, there's a company that sells them and they're listening devices, and they're really good at basically funneling the sound right into your ears so that there's total privacy of what you're being told. It was clear to anybody who's ever seen her in an interview or anybody who's ever seen her, have to talk off the cuff.
Yeah.
That was not Kamala Harris speaking. That was somebody in her ear that was giving her, the words of what to say. And what was interesting is that I saw an interview with Hillary Clinton, and she was asked if she's, helping Kamala Harris or if she's talking to her. And she did mention that, she was giving her some advice about the debate with Donald Trump. And I had to laugh because let's not forget, Hillary Clinton had an earpiece and Donna Brazile was whispering in her ear.
That is correct.
About what she needed to say in response to, Trump's questions. So, they're using the same old playbook, and, it's no surprise.
Did you see the gut-filled Trump thing last night? Did you watch it?
No, I did not, but I'm going to go back and watch it.
Here's the thing. I don't want to spoil it for you, but there's one part in which they're talking about Kamala Harris and everything else. And I'm literally screaming at the television. I'm pulling out the hair that I don't have. Okay. Because President Trump had an opportunity to end her campaign. And all he had to do was talk about, because they were talking about the burden by what has been thing, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they were calling it, and even Gutfeld was calling it, and I'm screaming at the TV. No, it's not word salad. It is Marxism. Okay. Right. Here's what this means. It is Karl Marx and Marxist ideology that she learned from her father. And what it means is burdened by what has been, which is your freedoms, your liberties, your prosperities, and what can be, right? Embrace communism. So what it's based off of are what's known as the four olds of Chinese Marxism. Old customs, old morals, old values, and old traditions. Anybody can look this up. Look up the four olds. You'll see it for yourself. So what is she saying when she says this? She's saying, forget about your past, ability to be free. Forget about your freedom. Forget about your safety. Forget about all those things you love, and now embrace what's going to be. People need to understand that. Another thing I'll add is this. The joy campaign. Oh, everybody's so joyful. It's a joy campaign, right? Does anybody even know what that means? The joy campaign originated in Nazi Germany, 1933 to 1945, when the Nazis were killing people. Killing Jews and gypsies obviously took a lot out of the morale of the soldiers, right? So they had to come up with some type of campaign. They called it, that's right, the Joy Campaign. And the Nazis then did arts and crafts. They did educational things. They did sporting and competitions and things like that. So here you are in 2024, and you actually have a Democrat candidate for the presidency using a Nazi propaganda program to run for president. These are the things that President Trump needs to talk about, and he could have ended that debate in 2 seconds if he would have done that.
Well, it's the same thing that George Orwell talked about in his book 1984, the doublespeak. We see it all the time. Congress does it. They'll name an act the Inflation Reduction Act, and it does the exact opposite. They have the Protection of Marriage Act, and it does exact opposite.
It undid DOMA, the Respect for Marriage Act is what you're referring to.
Yes.
The Employee Free Choice Act. No,
right.
That's card check.
So all of these things, anytime that they are saying something, take that name, deconstruct it, and give it the exact opposite meaning. That's likely what is going to be in that bill, or likely what is going to be in that program, like the Green New Deal. There's nothing green about it. In fact, far more contaminants and and waste products that come out of the process of digging all of these rare earth minerals out of the ground than
it's the deindustrialization of America. If you want to be technical, that's what the Green New Deal, and that's what its goal is, to deindustrialize everything that we have done as a country and all the things we've accomplished, from the automobile to the coal engines, everything. That's what they want to do. They won't say it like that. You see, the left and communists in particular, they like to hide behind language, right? Just like you said, or the Affordable Care Act. Well, we know that wasn't affordable at all, right? The Reduction Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. Another thing people need to understand is the word forward. Let's think about that for a second. Okay, what is the word forward? So let's think of who has used the word forward. You had Barack Obama use it, right? After change we can believe in, he then changed to forward, one word, right? You had MSLSD, because you have to be on it to watch it with the other 17 people. You had that. And what did they have? Lean forward, right? So, okay, that sounds right. And now what do we have? We have a new way forward. So let's dissect what forward means. Forward has been used by socialistic and communistic regimes throughout history. Mao Zedong, the Great Leap Forward. Vorwärts, which if you translate that in German, it means forward, the Nazi youth. Okay? The Bolsheviks of 1917, they didn't give you any, they didn't beat around the bush. Forward to communism. So people need to understand that they're telling us who they are. That's why what we're doing right now is so vitally important, because there are so many people in this country that don't know these things. And if they did, they would not support her.
Well, on that note, when Obama got elected and he
selected,
the first thing that he did, of course, was go on his world apology tour for America. But the first place he went to was he went and gave this grand speech in the same Coliseum that Adolf Hitler, had given his speech from. And I mean, it was shocking to see that. And it's no surprise, though, because these people are fascists. They call Donald Trump a fascist, but they're the real fascists. Yeah. They are the ones who are actually, behind the scenes working with big tech and big pharma and all of these other, big media, in order to control, in order to manipulate the markets, manipulate the media, manipulate the public. And it's pretty disgusting. And what's more shocking to me than anything is just how many people are still blind to that. Now, your book emphasizes the importance of individual responsibility in preserving freedom. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate, because we can talk all day long about this, but if people don't get off their butts and get out there and actually do something about it, nothing is going to change. In fact, we will continue going down, the path of destruction. So how do you think everyday Americans can take action to defend and uphold liberty in their communities and across the nation?
Well, number one, they have to be active. They have to understand that we, the people, have all the power. And a lot of people don't recognize that. And if they do recognize it, they don't know what to do or how to do it. My book is a textbook for that. This is a book that you read with a yellow highlighter in your hand, because my goal of this book was to give the reader numerous audible gasps at the information that you will read in Preserving Liberty, Bold and Brave Solutions to Save America and Create Permanent Freedom. But we are the ones that have the answers and all the solutions. The problem is that a lot of people don't know how to use it. So that is a big part of it. But let's actually pivot off the book for a second. If you live in a swing state, or if you live next to a swing state, you know that you can go to tpaction.com/commit100. tpaction.com/commit100. If you're out of the state, they will even pay for your accommodations to come into the state to register people, to knock on doors and things like that. Charlie Kirk is doing an amazing job right now. You've got, of course, Early Vote Action and Scott Pressler. You know, there's 300,000 hunters in Pennsylvania alone that have not been registered, that he's working on getting registered. He got 90,000 Amish registered and ready to vote. We need more men voting. Right now, what this country is suffering from, I hate to say it, is single issue women single voters. Because think about it. Men have had the right to vote, right? We've had the right to vote, but women didn't. Then they finally got the right to vote. And guess what? They're serious about their voting, and they always outvote men. So we've got to make sure that more men are voting. It can't be, oh, I'll get it next time, or, oh, I forgot. It can't, because you may not have a next time. So it is that vitally important. And if you want to help get the hunters registered to vote, you'd think out of all the threats against the Second Amendment, the hunters would be the ones that would be voting at 90% plus, right? No, they're not. And even Trump said it's like 16% or something crazy. It's so low. But the bottom line is you can go to huntthevote.org, huntthevote.org, find your state chapter, and you can find names and things like that, and you can help get these hunters and show how important it is. If they want to go out and hunt and they want their Second Amendment, they damn well better get going and get registered and voting. So again, the solutions are us. If we get active, then we can't be stopped. You
bring up a very good point. It is really what it all boils down to in terms of action. It is all about the vote, because at the end of the day, we're right now in West Virginia. I was running for political office for Congress, and I think our voter turnout in the primary was 18% of those registered to vote. 18%. So that's not even including the people who are eligible to vote who aren't registered. Right. So it is about those numbers. If we can get the other, was that 72% of voters to actually show up and vote, that would make all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
But right now, you don't have people who show up and vote. They don't see it as a duty. They don't see it as their solemn duty. And in many cases, a lot of people I ran into, they were certainly black-pilled. They basically are like, oh, my vote doesn't count.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that even if, let's just say that somebody buys into that and they think that the whole, that the elections are going to be stolen and Trump's going to lose. And, there are people who believe that. And let's face it, there is the possibility that could happen. But even still, what about your local sheriff, your school board, your delegate, your state senator, your county commissioner, all of these other positions that have probably more impact on you than even the federal positions have. And yet people don't even think about that. In fact, most people don't even know who their delegate is or who their state senator is, or who, they might know who their governor is and they'll know who the president is. Maybe they'll know who their senator and their congressman is.
It's because they're buried in these digital heroin. That's why. Yeah. Keep the masses on their asses, basically, instead of being active. So, you are correct in everything that you just said. We've got to watch these drop boxes. One of the ways they stole the election in 2020 is through the drop boxes. So if you live in a swing state or even next to a swing state, I would just go and I would put into a search drop boxes near me, and you'll find where they are. And you can watch them, or better yet, go to the big blue cities in your state. Go to Philadelphia, go to Allegheny County, go to Wayne County, go to, Clark County, go to these areas where there's a lot of people, find the drop boxes with 5 or 6 or 7 of your friends and watch the drop boxes. Do it in teams. Okay. We need to watch them, especially from the hours of 8 p.m. till 6 a.m. That's how they stole the election in 2020. So if we had 5 or 6 people on every single drop box standing there with video cameras, I think it'd be a hell of a lot harder for them to steal this election. So that's why I say it's extremely important that we are active. It's not just about going out and voting. It's almost like multi-level voting, which I actually got this idea from Wayne Allen Root, whose show I just did about maybe an hour ago. But he's correct. Let's do it that way.
MLB.
Bring 10 people, right? Get them to vote.
Right.
Get those 10 people to bring 10 people to get them to vote. Bring those 10 people, so forth and so on. That's how we can make it too big to rig.
Yeah. And that is really what it's about. Couple of other issues that I want to get back into with you. You mentioned right off the outset about FISA.
Yes.
And that is something that I have been screaming about for such a long time that, it's almost, at the point of ad nausea. I have a background working in the intelligence community. I was read on to FISA, read on to Section 702, read on to the intelligence authorities, all of that stuff. Know how those tools are used, know how they're supposed to be used. And I know for a fact that they're being violated and they're being done, used in the wrong way. Now, when I went through and was read onto those programs, I had to sign non-disclosures and things that said, look, if you use this tool to spy on your girlfriend, you're going to jail. 10 years.
Sure.
There have been multiple federal cases where the federal judges have come out and said that they've used Section 702 of FISA, which are warrantless searches. These are warrantless searches used on American citizens' digital data, and they have been doing this for such a long time now and getting away with it. Not a single person that I know of has gone to jail. In fact, I don't think anybody's even been prosecuted for it. And the concern that I have is when I see guys like Mike Johnson, who gets basically appointed as the new leader of the House, and within a couple of weeks of being in there, he goes and extends Section 702 of FISA.
Yeah,
that to me is very telling of a much deeper problem. One could argue that maybe he's just ignorant, but I don't believe that.
No, I don't think that. I mean, if you ever heard him speak, he's pretty articulate. He's pretty intelligent. But,
so the only other options that come to mind are blackmail, bribery, or he's part of it. He's part of the ones that want to be able to spy on everybody, because there's been so much evidence of abuse of this system, and to just kick the can down the road and let it continue to be renewed makes no sense at all. In fact, every single politician who voted for its renewal, I am immediately suspicious of. So there was and the reason I bring this up is, and I mentioned this to you before the show, but I had Dr. Robert Epstein on my show.
This is amazing.
And we did a pre-recorded show. It's going to come out on Sunday, so I definitely would recommend folks to watch it. But this happened. I had my Android phone. I had it silenced, and I had the volume turned down, and I had it on silent mode. And we're talking, and of course, he's all about exposing Google. That is his big enemy number one. He's got a great tool that he's been using to basically identify how Google is manipulating the minds of Americans and how they vote by up to 20%, and swaying millions of people to vote in ways that otherwise they wouldn't. And as he's talking and as he's going through this, all of a sudden Google AI chimes in and tries to interrupt our conversation, and actually says this conversation is without context, and tries to defend itself.
That's scary.
Freak the hell out. So that means that my phone, number one, probably his voice, because he's an outspoken person against Google. I'm sure they have a very good voice recognition algorithm on him, and my phone picked up that it was him that I was talking to.
Wow.
And figured out that we're probably doing a show and tried to intervene. So
That's
I
amazing.
immediately powered off my
Scary.
phone and dumped it in the bottom of a drawer. I was so pissed off and dismayed at that. But when I see that kind of stuff going on, and when I know that this basically is a tracking device, it's a listening device, it is a it's a spying device, and it's being used by corporations like Google, like Alphabet Inc., like Facebook. However, it's not just being used by them for marketing purposes.
Right.
They're collecting this information, and our government is buying it from them. We know that's the fact because the Twitter files revealed that the FBI was paying $9 million a year.
I cover that in the book as well.
Good.
You know, I've said this numerous times. In the last century, tyranny was gotten at the barrel of a gun. In this century, tyranny is voluntary. We are giving up our rights. We are giving up our freedoms. We are giving up our personal information and all that, all for this. As I say, what do I say? Tyranny is sold as convenience. This is tyranny.
That's right.
Whether we like it or not, whether we use it or not, I use it, you use it, I get it. But this still is a form of tyranny.
Well, I want to finish up with rounding this thing off here because back to what this can be used for, what this has the capabilities of doing. When you know that they are collecting everything, they know where we go, they know what we spend our money on, they know what we're talking about, they know, what things we're looking at online. All of that leads me to believe that the likelihood is that if they haven't bribed a politician, they are likely either blackmailing them or monitoring very closely to find something that they can blackmail them on. And if they can't get them, then they probably are going after their family members. I really think that is behind a lot of these weird decisions that are going on by even some of our conservatives. And it concerns me. And so it's one of the reasons why I believe that getting that under control, putting people in prison for deprivation of rights under color of law, for spying illegally without warrants, going after the corporations that are digitally spying on people and then selling their information. If we can't get that under control, I don't see any amount of electing the right people into office fixing it, because of the fact that I think a lot of these people are being manipulated. And I can't remember which congressman it was, but there was a congressman this year who
George Santos, probably.
He mentioned. No, it was not George Santos. But
they threw him out of Congress because he was a whistleblower in a lot of ways too.
Yes, but this congressman, if you just search for Congress admits blackmail or Congressman admits blackmail, he's on a
Madison Cawthorn
conservative podcast. No, his was an interesting one though too, because he talked about the sex drug, drug-fueled sex parties. No, and right after that, of course, they made sure he never got elected again. Is it Blanchett? Might be Blanchett or something like that. But anyways, I'll look it up and I'll let you know after the show. But if you Google it, you can find it. And this guy mentioned about how things happen. That basically, you go out of town on some, congressional field trip. You're at some hotel and some beautiful woman comes up to you and, starts laughing at all your jokes. And she's way prettier than she'll be paying attention to you. And next thing you know, you find yourself in a compromising situation. And she's, coming into your room. You go back to Washington and you're on the House floor and somebody walks up to you with a cell phone and says, "Hey, see this picture right here?
You're going to vote this way."
Yeah, you might want to vote a different way on that.
Exactly.
And he says that's how it's going on. And I don't have any reason to believe why a congressman would lie about something like that.
Yeah. No, look, I think you're right. And honestly, we also learned from George Santos that they have these cages in some of these congressional buildings down in the basement. Who knows what they're doing in there? What kind of sexual depravity and acts are going on in there? But you're right. Blackmail is a big part of what Washington is all about. Washington is 68.5 square miles. Do you have any idea how many registered lobbyists there are? Take a guess.
I'm not even going to bother to try to guess, but I know it's a lot.
12,500 registered lobbyists in a 68.5 square mile area. You want to talk about influence and power structure and greed and all of that? Those are the types of jaw-dropping statistics that you're going to find in Preserving Liberty. So, definitely, folks, go and grab yourself a copy of it.
That's a problem not just happening at the federal level. It's also happening in our state levels. And unfortunately, in West Virginia, they don't even have a registry. So we don't even know who's meeting with who, when they're meeting with them. We don't know any of that. Yeah. We don't know who's down there influencing the politicians. We don't know who's, got their hands in somebody's pockets. We really don't. And right. And I think it's the same problem that we have in DC, which is that's why people get elected, and it sounds like they're going to represent us, and then they get down there and they do the exact opposite. Exactly. Well, we're almost out of time here, and I want to make sure and give you the last word. I always like to give my guests the last word. What is the one thing that you think is most important that people take away from this conversation tonight?
That we are the ones that have the power, and we have to be actively and civically engaged. It's not just about going out and voting. You then have to go down to your local precinct and watch the parking lots. You need to watch the counting centers. You need to get groups of friends from your friend group, your community, your church, whatever, 5 or 6 of you, and then create teams and go and do different things, either a door knocking, watching drop boxes, going down and watching the parking lots, okay? Things like that. The other thing is that if you do have a mail-in ballot, this is something Mike Lindell actually says, fill it out completely, 100%, have the phone number of your local sheriff and the election recorder's office on the envelope somewhere or on a piece of paper, and then go down and vote in person. Don't use the mail-in ballot. Go down and vote in person. If they tell you, sorry, you've already voted, pull it out and said, no, I didn't. It's right here. And then you call the sheriff. That's where you call the election officials and you file an immediate complaint. The other thing I'll tell people is this: do not use felt tip markers. And if you go down there and they say, here's a marker to use, no, use a ballpoint pen. You remember Sharpie Gate, right? In Arizona and elsewhere. Yep. They did that on purpose so that the machine would bleed, and then they could call it a spoiled ballot, which then puts it into a totally different situation in which they have to adjudicate the file, where now, instead of the machine, you have a human saying whether or not that vote was for this person or that person. Avoid those mistakes by bringing your own pen.
Well, Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show tonight. Your insights and bold solutions are exactly what we need as we face unprecedented challenges to our freedom and our way of life. For those listening, I would encourage you to pick up a copy of Preserving Liberty. It's not just a book. It's a roadmap for reclaiming our country and securing liberty for generations to come.
It's a textbook in a lot of ways.
Where can people follow you on social media? Where can they go to find out more? And where can they, I think you mentioned Amazon, but
yeah. Well, I'm one of the top 10 most censored people in this country. So the best place to find me and reach me is at jbushow.com. I know we don't have the full banner up right now, but it's jbushow.com. Please become a subscriber there, $5-10 a month, whatever you want to do. You can also order the book on the homepage. But I do a show 7 days a week, every single day, and I do jaw-dropping, content. I do it and I deliver it the way that I talk to you right now. We don't beat around the bush. We're not politically correct. And, we keep it PG-13, a little R, but usually PG-13, even PG at times. But it's all necessary information, and you need to become a subscriber and join, as my fans call me, the Badass Nation. So jbushow.com. And remember, go to Amazon and order a copy of Preserving Liberty, because you'll be happy that you did.
Well, as we wrap up, I'd like to offer a brief prayer. Heavenly Father, I just thank you for Josh and what he's doing. Lord, I pray that you would continue to bless him, bless his show, bless this book. Lord, I pray that you'd help many people to find this book in their hands, and that you would activate the American people to get out there and engage and become civically engaged, Lord, in their communities and for their country. Lord, give us wisdom and help us to navigate these troubled waters that we're in as a country. Help us steer us out of this mess, Lord. And I pray, Lord, that you would bless all those listening tonight, that they would have gotten something out of this show tonight, and that their eyes will be opened. And I pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Can I just say one other thing?
Sure.
What we just did right now is the difference between patriotism and communists and liberals, okay? Because no one's snickering, no one's saying anything. We're just doing what should come natural to anyone, giving prayer and thanks to the man upstairs. And in the left, they don't do that. And that's the difference. They don't have God in their heart and in their soul.
That's right. That's right. You know, our founders understood very clearly that, you know, they may not have all had the same interpretation or understanding of God, but they all understood that there was a God, and they all understood there was no way we were going to survive as a nation without his blessings. And that's why I always end my show in prayer, because I always want to acknowledge that, look, we got to do our part. There's things that we have to do, but we absolutely must put our dependency on God, above all else. Amen. So, folks, well, Josh, thanks again, for joining us. And
no problem. Anytime, any topic.
Awesome. And I definitely want to, I would definitely like to have you back on, and I'd be happy to come on your show as well as a guest. And
sure.
Hang on after the show, because I definitely want to, exchange information and chat a little bit more with you. But folks, be sure to follow me on social media at Nate Cain for WV, and check out all of our past and upcoming shows at theRaisingCainShow.com. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep fighting for our republic. God bless America.
Raise some Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.